Welcome, Paranormal Skeptic Academy listeners, to the first ever live broadcast of Mr. Kenny's Skeptical Corner. Now, you may be asking yourself, but C-Webb, your name's not Kenny, and you would be right. So I went out and found the best Kenny I can find, and here's who I brought to you. He's an author, an investigator, a skeptic extraordinaire, and co-host of the soon-to-be award-winning Geeks and Goes videocast on YouTube. I bring to you Mr. Kenny Biddle. Kenny, welcome to the videocast.
What's up, C-Webb?
Now, I
you.
know I've been on your videocast a couple times now already, and you've been mentioned in my podcast. So for my listeners who don't know who you are, can you give us a little background on your credentials, what you've done in the past, why you think you're a skeptic, and so on?
Okay. Well, let's see. My day job is a mechanic. I work on helicopters.
Wow.
Before that, I worked on cars. Before that, I was an EMT, which is empty-minded twit. No, I worked on people. So my background has always been working on things and figuring out the problems and fixing them. Also, on the weekends and at night, I do photography, and that really became an interest a couple years ago because I got into ghost hunting, and I kept getting these pictures I couldn't understand, so I wanted to go further. So got into photography, and I do it professionally now. I get paid for my work, which is awesome. I've learned a lot. In 2007, I published a book called Orbs or Dust, and it basically took a lot of paranormal photography and explained exactly how you're getting these. It wasn't supernatural explanations, it was natural explanations. And I included experiments for you to try and to verify the results yourself. What else have I done? I do lectures at different conferences, and I've done a couple colleges, Drexel University being one of them, where I addressed the skeptic a group down there and talked about photography and ghost hunting and more skeptical paranormal investigation. I am not a member of MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, but I do photography consultant for them. I also do training sessions for their field investigators. Yeah, it's exciting.
Wow.
It gets me out of the ghost hunting thing into something else. That's weird. What else? I've done a couple other books. I've written for the Ben Spoon magazine. I've written for Skeptical Briefs, which is the newsletter for Skeptical Inquirer magazine, because apparently my articles are too long to go into the magazine.
So they put it in the brief section, right?
Yes, well, they put it on the newsletter, so there's more space for articles like mine.
Yeah.
I have been mentioned in other works, Scientific Paranormal Investigation by Ben Rafford. My book is mentioned in there. My book is also mentioned in his Mysterious New Mexico book that just was released a couple months ago. What else? I do a video series on my own called I Am Kenny Biddle. It's a blog and a video series. So I write constantly on Facebook, and I do videos whenever I have the chance, whenever I have time, where I discuss methodology, I review ghost hunting gadgets, I bitch about things that really set me off, like psychics diagnosing medical conditions and stuff like that. So that's me. I work. Wow. I also have the Anomalies Research Society, which is a evidence-based group that I've formed with Sharon Hill, the writer of DoubtfulNews.com, and we really take a skeptical, scientific approach at everything. We bring our skills. We have members that are professionals in various fields, engineering, carpentry, chemistry, psychology, all of this, and we bring it together and we discuss issues that are brought to our attention, as in people that have paranormal claims, and we bring our expertise to it and figure out what's going on. So it's fun, and that's, I guess, me in a nutshell.
So you mentioned that you had all these jobs you do that led you to investigate things further, but what specifically drew you to the paranormal?
Well, I had weird experiences growing up. My grandmother died when I was very young, probably about 7 years old, I guess, and for some reason, I couldn't go into the room where she died. I knew she was in there. She was bedridden, and I don't know if I knew she died or not, but I was scared to go in the room.
Hmm.
And that kind of got me on the path. You know, I'm not saying it was a paranormal experience. I was 7 years old. My grandmother, who I was very close to, died. So I can understand freaking out about going in the room where she spent the last like year or two of her life.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of got me interested in the weird stuff. And growing up in a Catholic household, all that stuff was taboo. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I went to a Catholic school, and the library had 2 books on ghosts, and that's all I read. I went through, let's see, like 5 years of Catholic school, maybe 5, 6 years of Catholic school, and I've read 2 books in their library
Wow.
because that's the only thing that really interested me, and I've been hooked ever since.
So you imagine my surprise when I was reading that book by Benjamin Rafford and I saw you. I was like, holy crap, that's Kenny. I know Kenny. When the hell did he write a book? And you said you wrote the book on orbs. And that got me interested thinking about the topic we're going to discuss tonight, and that is orbs. Now, I don't know if orbs have fallen out of style with the more recent paranormal TV shows because my podcast focuses specifically on the paranormal reality shows. You do more of the off-air type investigations that aren't as popular and well known, but are just as important. So, speaking of orbs, where did orbs come from, and when did they become so popular in the paranormal community?
This is actually interesting. When I started writing the book, I was focusing more on the photography angle of it, trying to explain how they're produced. But when you look at the history of it, orbs weren't they didn't come with ghost hunting. They actually came from UFO investigations because people were getting these orbs in photographs and thinking that they were some kind of alien being or alien ship. It really came from all the UFO researchers first, and then it kind of migrated over to the ghost hunting community. Probably in the early '90s when digital cameras started coming out, the Sony Mavica, that really was a boom for it. Before that, you had your compact 35 millimeter cameras, or actually the 110 cameras, because as the flash got closer to the lens with the smaller cameras, your orb effect, which we'll get into later, I'm sure, was more pronounced. People were seeing it more, didn't understand what they were, so naturally, people go to the supernatural. They can't
Right.
explain it, so it must be a alien or a ghost or something like that. So that's really the evolution of it, and it took off with digital cameras. I mean, they became so popular, everybody had them. You could take hundreds of pictures at a time without worrying about developing film. So people were taking more and more and more pictures. So you got more pictures with these weird anomalies in them that nobody could understand.
So you could pretty much say that in the 90s it became popular because it was another anomaly ghost hunters can use to prove that a place is haunted, something that they can use as quote unquote evidence to support their beliefs.
Yeah, yeah, and it was something that anyone could access. It didn't need any special tools. All you needed was a digital camera, which pretty much everybody could afford.
Hmm.
It didn't matter. You didn't need a high-end one. You could get a cheap digital camera, well, as cheap as they were back in the 90s, and you could get it. You didn't have to be a scientist or a photographer or anything technical. Anybody could do it. That's why it was popular.
So, what are some of the justifications paranormal investigators would use to support orbs being evidence of ghosts? What were some of the reasoning behind that?
Well, the number one reason, which is usually it's a blanket reason, so to speak, is that they can't explain it. And it's I use this a lot, and I almost feel like a broken record sometimes. But that's what they claim. That if they can't explain it, then nobody can, and they make that assumption. Um, They don't understand photography because, for the most part, and this is from my experience from the last almost 20 years of doing this, most of the ghost hunters that take these pictures, that's all they are picture takers. They're not photographers. And there is a distinction. Photographers know what they're doing. They can set up the shot. They know what the settings do. They know if they change this setting, they'll get a different effect. They can explain what happens in their photos. When they see them, they can say, oh, crap, I should have done it this way. I should have done it that way. For the most part, the ghost hunting community, UFO hunters, Bigfoot hunters, all of them, all they are picture takers, which means all they know how to do is point the camera somewhere and push the button. Most of them, when you ask them about the shutter release, they have no idea what it is. So the justification, I think, is just because they can't explain it. And then when you try to, another one is I took 2 or 3 pictures, in the span of 10 seconds, and it wasn't there. So explain that. And I can, but the problem is they can't.
Right.
And that's where the burden of proof comes in. I guess most of the people that we deal with don't understand the burden of proof.
Mm-hmm.
They get something, they can't figure it out, so they want you to prove them wrong.
Right.
That's the wrong way to do it. It's up to you. If you're making the claim, you're the one that has to prove it.
Mm-hmm.
So
when you said there's a difference between picture takers and photographers, do you know of any photographers who would add legitimacy to orbs, or do they all know what effect is actually happening?
none of the professional photographers that I know of, the people that do this all the time, that get paid for their work, that have the knowledge and experience, none of them that I know will support this, because they know exactly what's going on. They understand the concept and the method and the process of how orbs are created in pictures. And most of us use enough equipment that we don't get them in our pictures. And that's the big difference. When you use a small camera, I don't have one on my desk here, but when you use a compact camera, I can almost guarantee you're going to get one. But when I use my cameras, a DSLR with a mounted flash, I don't get any. The only time I've ever gotten them in the last 10 years on that camera is when I was in a old train tunnel, and the mist and the moisture, everything was in there. It was just, there was no way I could avoid it. And that's it. But yeah, I don't know what else to tell you on that one.
When you get, paranormal believers and they say, hey, look, I have captured this orb on photo, and you explain to them the effect that's happened. We haven't talked about the effect yet, but we'll get there eventually. But when you explain it to them, what's the process like? Do they accept your explanation? Do they just push it aside and say, well, you weren't there, you didn't experience what I experienced. On top of seeing an orb, I felt the hair on my arm stand up. What's been your experience?
It varies. It depends on who I'm talking to. If you're talking to somebody that's been getting orbs for a long time and they're dead set in their ways, then my argument is pretty much I'd have better results talking to a wall. But there are a lot of people out there that do listen. They want to know an explanation, an alternate explanation to it, and they'll listen to it. And listening is one thing, because you can talk and debate, but what I prefer to do is demonstrate it. And if it's an area where it's dark already and we can turn out the lights, you can use a simple flashlight and show them all the dust particles that are in the air. Even right now, between myself and the camera here, there's dust particles going through. And it's funny when I do my videos for my blog,
Mm-hmm.
and I turn the lights out for some effect to do experiments. Most of the time, I do catch orbs going back and forth, and that's when I usually have the light on behind the monitor there, and it'll light them up and float in front, and you'll be like, "Oh, look, there's orbs." It's really cool. But I would say it's probably like 50-50, really.
Mm-hmm.
A couple years ago, most would just ignore me.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to hear it. That would be like 5, 10 years ago. Recent times, though, more people are open to it, and you, it's not so common, but it's still out there.
Right. So let's explain to the listeners what exactly is happening, because from a paranormal point of view, these people think that it's a ghost energy, some kind of ghost energy, because it can move in weird patterns, and the camera is picking up this energy that you normally wouldn't see with the naked eye. Because most of the times, when these investigators go into a place, it's pitch black, the lights are out. The only thing that's really lighting their way is their viewfinder on their camera, and then they'll snap some flash photography with those compact, single shot cameras that
Right.
aren't fancy. That you said they're picture takers, not photographers. So we understand what the paranormal people think it is, but what is actually happening when someone takes that picture? What's going on?
Well, your camera focuses on a specific distance, and in that distance, say it focuses on a person that's about 10 feet away. Okay, so there's a plane, and it's not an airplane, but a plane, like a vertical plane that it focuses on. That's the exact distance that is perfectly in focus. And then right behind it, right in front of it, there's a small area that is acceptably in focus, and it looks sharp. This area is called depth of field. So this is what we want. We want things in focus. Anything that's too close or further away, it starts to go into what's called circle of confusion. That's when it starts blurring. Okay, because your camera is focused on that subject that's 10 feet away. It's not focused on something 5 feet away or 50 feet away. And what happens is, I mean, we can demonstrate it. The camera's focused on me right now, but if I put something up in front, you can see it's blurry coming up in front of there. You can actually see little orbs off the reflection.
Right.
Look at that. That's exactly what's happening. You have things like dust particles, which are too small for us to focus on normally. Okay, in a room where the lighting is normal, it's average, it's dispersed, you're not going to notice dust particles. But we've all seen that sunbeam coming in through the window on a bright sunny day. It's shady inside the house, and you see dust particles floating around. And as soon as they go outside of that sunbeam, they're invisible. You don't see them anymore. Well, the same thing's happening with your camera. When you're in that dark, abandoned building, or you're in that private residence and you turn the lights out because for some reason, apparently that improves your ghost hunting, and you start taking pictures, the flash goes off. So your camera focuses on something, usually across the room. The flash goes off. There's dust particles going in front of your lens, and usually within a few inches. It's usually not more than like 10 inches away. And what happens is now you have an out of focus dust particle, and when something goes out of focus like that, it expands. The image itself expands. So you have a larger, probably like 10 times, at least 10 times larger than what it normally is. It's transparent because it's blurry. And it's also washed out because of the flash. That's where you get your white orbs. And the same thing can happen with bugs. The same thing can happen with also lens flare. And that's a different topic. It actually has to do with a bright light source bouncing around inside the lens. Usually you see it like in movies when it pans across a landscape and the sun's in the background, and you get those stream of orbs coming towards the camera, and it moves with the camera as it pans across the scenery. That is usually non-image forming light, because what happens is that light is bouncing around. It's not supposed to be there, but it bounces around the internal mechanism, the lenses inside the camera, and it creates that. Really easy to create. You don't need the sun. You can do it with street lights, flashlights, which are common on ghost hunts.
Right.
The street lights, if you're outside, like a cemetery or something close to the road. Even the LED, infrared lights that people use. I mean, they use a lot of floodlights and flashlights for their night vision cameras and stuff like that. It'll still pick it up on the digital cameras because our digital cameras can see the infrared. That pretty much covers it. I mean, that's the idea. It's out of focus,
Right.
and it gets lit up by the flash. You also have street lights and stuff that are in the distance. If you're focused, if you have a good portrait focuses on the person in front of you, which is usually only 5 feet, 10 feet, maybe, and then the background blurs out. Well, if you have any kind of lights, street lights, flashlights, lanterns, LEDs from the tons of equipment that they bring out, that's useless. That will be out of focus, and then those lights will create a larger, transparent orb. And I mean, it's not supernatural, it's not paranormal, it's the natural way the camera works. That's it.
When do you get do people submit photos to you to review, to look at to see if it's legitimate orb? I mean, I hate to use that word legitimate, or if it's just dust. Do you ever get those?
Yes, I get not as much anymore. I'll tell you a real quick story about this. I was at a conference at Fort Mifflin, that's here in Philly, and a good friend of mine, I'm going to drop a name, Paul Michael Kane, awesome photographer, professional, amazing work. Well, he's there too. And an old lady comes up to him and starts asking him questions. And she's got a stack of printed photographs, like probably a good two inches thick. And I start laughing. I'm like, she's asking him ghost questions and stuff like that. And then I look over and I see that bastard point at me. And he's like, you need to go ask Kenny. So she comes over and she shows me the picture. And it's from a cemetery. And in the distance, well, I could see it was in the distance, but to her, there were two golden orbs. And they were spaced out, but pretty much lined up with the street, which we would use as the horizon. But it was level with the street. The picture was blurry. She had taken it, I guess it didn't focus on the scene, so it took the picture anyway, and she got these orbs. And I'm looking at it, and I'm saying, well, honestly, because you're close to the street here, and you're on the edge of a cemetery, they really look like streetlights. The color, how they're level with the street, all the clues are pointing to streetlights. She starts yelling at me. No, there's no possible way. I talked to this person and this person, like all these different people that confirmed that these were orbs and they were spirits, they were ghosts. And I said, well, do you have any other pictures of the area? This whole image is blurry. I can't really tell. She flips over the next picture, same scene. The camera had focused. You can see the streetlights, the poles, the streetlights were on, everything, the wires going to them. I'm like, honey, did you not bother to look at the next picture? I mean, this is it. I hold them next to each other. I'm like, there you go. She snatches it out. I don't care what I don't like you. And that's it. She storms up. And her friend is standing there going, I told her they weren't real. She's just stupid. But that's the kind of thing that I get. Pictures like that where it's almost obvious what it is. People just don't want to, they either don't want to know that it's not real. Did I say that right? They want to believe it's an orb.
Right.
They're excited about it. Or they're so convinced that it already is that all they're looking for is confirmation. They don't actually want an opinion. They just want me to say, yes, you were right.
Well, that would explain her taking it to so many different people
yes.
to get confirmation for it.
Yeah.
And it's almost like that phenomenon where you ignore the misses and remember the hits. And so when she's sorting through that stack of papers or that stack of photos, she sees the one that confirms what she believes, and then the very next one adamantly disproves what she believes. It's obviously a street light, but she didn't bother to look at that. And when you pointed out to her, she got defensive. And
Right.
that is a concrete textbook example of that phenomenon.
Confirmation bias.
Exactly.
Yeah, she was already convinced. She just wanted everybody to tell her she was right. And oh well, I'm not gonna bullshit you.
Yeah, or yeah, you're not. It's not what you do.
Yeah.
You're not in the business of
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 skeptical investigation and critical thinking.
right.
That's it.
Exactly. You're not going to confirm their beliefs for them if you think it's wrong.
Right.
Now, in Ghost Adventures, my boy Zach Bagans, he's probably one of my favorite characters outside of Brian Daly from Paranormal Home Inspectors in the ghost hunting genre, ghost hunting reality TV genre. And they use some of the craziest technology, quote unquote, ghost technology that's out there. One episode they used a gold beryllium microphone because it picked up certain frequencies that ghosts known to reside on. Complete BS, we all know. Yeah. And it was just like, it was like a Little John microphone, right? His gold plate is like something James Brown would use back in the 70s. And then he would go in with this infrared camera that would be that would shoot an infrared flash, and then the camera would take pictures of the room. And in one particular instance, it took a picture of like this weird mist forming by the window, and he said that this is a ghost trying to manifest itself, and was right by a window, and it could have been a number of things besides a ghost. But have you seen these crazy cameras and stuff they use?
You might be referring just to an infrared camera, which usually means they install a filter,
Mm-hmm.
and it's actually a visible light filter. You call it an infrared filter, but it actually cuts out visible light so that only infrared gets through. And with modern day digital cameras, if you don't take out, they have an internal filter over top of the sensor that cuts out infrared, or most of your infrared. So you either have to take that internal filter out to let all the light in, or you need to leave the shutter open for a long time to get good infrared pictures. They also have these full spectrum cameras, which do infrared, visible, and ultraviolet. I've seen those too. I have one. I have one around here. My friend Carolyn Doherty sent it to me, and I never sent it back. But those are notorious for long exposures because these cameras are made for visible light. That's what they're designed to do. And in true ghost hunter fashion, they take something that's not designed for their use and they use it anyway.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So they're taking these pictures, they're getting long exposures because the camera is looking at all this other light that it's not supposed to be seeing, and it's saying, well, there's not enough. I need more, so it keeps the shutter open. So instead of going click, click, taking a picture, you're going click, click, and that's one photo. And they're always holding it by hand. I hardly ever see any ghost hunter using a tripod. So when you do that, you have a long exposure, things start getting shifty, you get motion blur, camera shake, which are two conditions that make objects look like they're moving. Or they expand. You know, if you have a light in a corner and you're holding a camera and it takes a long exposure and you're moving it, you don't think you're moving it, but trust me, you are.
Right, exactly.
That light will get bigger. It will actually appear on that image larger than it really is. I don't think these cameras are effective at all. I mean, I use them for artistic reasons, you know, to get awesome, weird scenery pictures. Like there was like old what was that old horror kind of show? It wasn't like the Twilight Zone. It was oh crap. They used to do something where the intro was an inverted negative picture, and it was really cool. But it was like an infrared picture that was reversed.
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of stuff is artsy, but for what they're using it for, I think they're wasting their time. It's a novelty. I think like a lot of this equipment they're using, it's a novelty. They don't understand the mechanics of what they're using. They're just seeing like, oh, it takes pictures in different kind of light that we can't see, and that's the novelty. Instead of understanding why it's doing that or what effects it have on the camera because it's doing that, they just buy it up and start using it. And that causes a lot of problems. When you start using equipment you don't know how to use, you're going to screw it up. So that's all. That's yeah.
It's essentially they're fooling themselves.
Yes, it's self-deception. On a large scale.
Right. So let's shift to video cameras. Are you? Hopefully, that's within your wheelhouse of what you know, because there's been times where you see on these ghost hunting shows that they have a video camera mounted on a tripod, and it's just a static camera shooting one direction, like down a dark and scary hallway. And then every once in a while, they'll see a particle of dust float through the screen, doing this, is doing something weird, spelling their name out, whatever he's doing. And then off in the distance, on the other side of the building, they'll say, "Right at this time, we called out to the ghost to appear, and our camera that was 50 feet away, 2 stories down, caught this dust floating through the air. We believe that this is evidence that the ghost tried to manifest itself." Are video cameras doing the same thing picture cameras are doing? And is that an accurate description of what these ghost hunting shows are?
You sound so much like Zach. Oh, you watched way too many of those shows.
Way too much of it.
Yes. They're doing it on... Yes. Pretty much that's exactly what they're doing. Except you have... Because video cameras are essentially just still cameras that take a lot of pictures. And most of your video cameras will run about 30 frames per second. And what that means is that it's taking 30 pictures every second. When you watch a movie screen, when you watch this, it's going at a frame rate. It's showing a whole bunch of still pictures so fast that we perceive it as motion. And that's what a video camera does. It's sitting there, it's watching the environment, watching the area it's set up in, and it's going about 30 frames per second. That's if you're lucky. Some of them are only 24 frames. And if you have a large system, when you get DVR systems, you usually have to check the frame rate, and it gives you a total. And you have to divide that up by how many cameras you're going to attach to it. And as long as you get 30 frames per second from that little division, then you should be fine. But if it drops any lower, some of them get like 12 frames per second, something like that, you're going to have a choppy video. That's when you have that weird video that kind of goes like that. It's all choppy. You also have editing. They're TV shows.
Yep.
So you have no clue when that video was shot and when that voiceover was done. Okay, so they could have taken it hours or days later and said, "Oh, this is good footage. Let's do a voiceover." We got that. And something else with the cameras, you mentioned like a speck of dust that comes by. They usually have their own. The cameras are usually night vision. They have their own LEDs that light up the area. You can have 1 or 2 onboard LEDs, or you could have a camera that's in the middle and it has like 30 LEDs around it. Well, that's still going to that's throwing out light in a cone. Okay? And what you have to remember is that your video camera is in a format for your screen, which is usually a square or the widescreen letterbox. It's not a circle. So you're going to see night vision video where the middle is bright and then it gets darker in the corners. That's because the light that's getting thrown out by the camera only covers about that much when it goes down the hall. Anything where my hands are, you're not seeing. There's no light being shed on that. So if a dust particle comes in, say, comes in from the side here, you're not going to see it until it reaches here. And then as it goes across the screen, when it gets to there,
It disappears.
it disappears. That gives the perception that it's appearing.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere. Okay.
Or, I mean, hell, if they have a doorway or a window that happens to line up where the light stops, now it's coming in that doorway.
Right.
You know, or going out the window, or if someone's standing there. I mean, people have said, oh, look, someone was standing there and it came out of their chest. No, this is not the movie Alien. It did not come out of their chest. It was nowhere near their chest. But
What?
again, go ahead.
So if you're setting up an experiment and you wanted to control for orbs, what would be some of the things you would do to make sure that you're not capturing orbs in your photos or videos? Photos might be a little bit easier than videos.
Yeah. If you're going to use, if you're talking about still photos, I would definitely go with a DSLR and get a shoe-mounted flash, because that puts the flash up high. Let me show you. I'm going to go off camera here for a second. Oops, that's not good. So your flash would go up here. I'm pretty sure I have one here somewhere. And it gets away from the lens. And that's what you want to do. So you put the flash up top.
Right.
Boom. Now the flash is way, way, way far from the lens. And this is the area that you're concerned about right here. You don't want dust particles or bugs or anything like that in front of the lens, because on a compact camera, where the flash is right next to it down here, it's going to light it up. It's going to wash it out. You're not going to see details. And it's going to be blurry, so you're going to get that over effect. If you have the light up top here, the light's coming out, spreading out. It's more dispersed, especially while I have a diffuser on it. But it comes out. It doesn't go right in front of the lens.
Right.
And that'll cut down. Like I said earlier, I mean, except when I was in that abandoned train tunnel, I've never gotten orbs with this camera or any of the other DSLRs that I have, just because I do that. If I use the pop-up flash, then yeah, I can get that, because the pop-up flash comes right here, and it, again, anything that's right in front of the lens is going to light up.
Well, if you control for all that stuff, you won't get your effect and you won't get your evidence.
Well, yeah.
That's kind of the point.
Nothing to talk about. For video cameras, stop doing investigations at night. That's the best thing, because there's no freaking reason to do that, except, you know, that's the only time you can get into the place. But keep the lights on, and then you'll have even light throughout the whole area. You won't have to worry about it. I mean, you're still going to get it, because depending on where you set the camera up, it doesn't have to be an onboard light. If you set a camera up, like I have a light right up above me here. If I set a camera up right here, facing towards you, the light from the ceiling lamp might be enough to light up the dust right in front of the camera. I won't see it, but the camera will.
Right.
But that's the best way. Or honestly, just understand what the hell you're doing. You know, I mean, it really comes down to that. Understand how photography works and how video works, and that the dust particles, the orbs that are going in front of your camera, are not spirits. They're not ghosts. They're not demons, or they're dust bunnies. That's as far as it goes. You can do the experiments yourself. Take pictures. Look into the sunbeam. Hell, if you go to like a movie theater, look up when the movie's playing, where the projector is shooting out the light. You're going to see dust particles roaming around. I did a video. I was at a lecture that had nothing to do with paranormal, but it was in a big auditorium, and I looked up, saw the projector coming out. I'm like, oh crap! There's like millions of dust particles in this place, and it was actually it was a high school, clean, pretty new. I was like, wow, this place is dusty.
Or haunted.
Yeah, maybe. But I thought, you know, this is an excellent opportunity, so I shot some video, zoomed in, And as soon as I zoomed in enough where I focused on the projector and not the dust particles, all the dust particles became orbs. And
Amazing.
I know, it's like magic. They went up, down, back and forth. They did loop-de-loops. Some came in like this and went up the screen zigzagging, decided they didn't want to go up anymore, and then came back down. They're not intelligent ghosts or spirits. They are riding on air currents that we can't feel that change like that. There is no flight pattern. There is no way they're supposed to move. It's just dust.
Just
it moves
random
however
dust.
it wants.
Yeah.
So
how popular are orbs in 2015? Are they still, do they still carry the same weight as they did 10, 15, 20 years ago?
no, they're not as popular. Not that I've seen, but they're still out there. Every conference that I've been to, there's always at least 2-3 tables of ghost hunting groups that display pictures. The last one I went to was in Jersey, and there was a group not only showing video of all the orbs that they captured, but they had 2 photo albums full of pictures, and it was just, they were dead serious. They promoted themselves as professional teams, experts. You know, we've been doing this for 15, 20 years and this and that, and all I could think of was like, you guys have no idea. You honestly don't. That tells me right away that they don't do any research. They're not professional. There's obviously no photographers on the team. But I've seen pictures, the color chart. I've seen that at conferences. The mood ring color chart.
Oh boy.
Where they've taken all the colors from a mood ring that are supposed to tell you if they're angry or sad or happy or in love, and they replaced mood ring with orb emotions. And I swear, oh my God, last year there was a table that had a poster, a huge poster, with all the colors and all the emotions. And there was a sweet old lady at the table, and I didn't have the heart to go up and say, "Are you kidding me?" You know, so I left her alone. Because, you know, I pick my battles.
Right.
But it's just, it's not as popular. Back in the 90s, early 2000s, yeah, everybody thought they were something. And I've definitely seen a shift. It was slow, but the more people that I associate with and the groups that I've been in, I see a majority that refute them, that don't even bother. There's some groups that I've seen that actually have it in their description, like, don't even bother posting orbs because we don't believe in them. We know what they are. Don't even bother. So yeah.
Has something taken the place of orbs that's the modern day? I know there's certain apps that can fake ghost sightings. Is that the new orb sensation today?
Oh, definitely. There is so many phone apps that create ghosts for you, and they have galleries, and there's Facebook pages, like there's a ghost app for that. I go there frequently because they try and keep up with all the apps that are coming out, and they put all the ghosts in every gallery up there so you can compare it. But yeah, it seems to be, that's the thing. Kids are screwing with their parents. Team members from supposedly professional teams are taking these pictures and presenting it to their group and saying, look, I got the real thing. And the group is just, they accept it at face value. They don't question it. They don't say, oh my God, you know, are you sure? Can we look at this? No, it's, hey, team member Timmy got this picture at this cemetery. Isn't it a great catch? No, it's not. It's oh my God. There was a ghost tour in Gettysburg that put one out saying it was a real deal, promoting it, saying, you know what, look at this. We got this on this tour. And it was so obvious. It was a ghost app, but they didn't want to hear it. Even when we presented it, like I got together with a couple other people, we were showing it to them. We showed them the app. We got the exact ghost. We pointed out that the ghost was black and white and your picture was color. You screwed that one up. And we even did a side by side. Like, this is from the gallery. This is a screenshot of the gallery picture. And this is a screenshot of your ghost picture side by side. Still no, would not concede that it was a fake. And that's what we're seeing. I mean, there's orbs are still out there, but the ghost app things, they've taken over.
What I saw and noticed in a couple of cases is panoramic shots with cell phones, how it interlaces photos together as you move your phone across the
Right.
scene. And if an object is moving like a person, it can distort the image. You can make them elongated. It can do all kinds of crazy things. And I've seen a couple stories where it's like, oh, we caught a ghost on camera from the cell phone camera. And when you look at the photo, you can tell how the image bends a certain way because it's a
Yeah.
panoramic shot, and how the cell phone software interlaces the picture together. I think that's going to be, or is, a growing trend as well as the technology sophisticates into our cell phones. We got the ghost apps, we got the panoramic views. So orbs are or have been replaced, but it's still the same effect. It's still a trick of the camera,
Right.
as opposed to an actual evidence for the paranormal.
Right. And we saw that there was a story a couple months ago, came out of, I think it came out of England, where somebody took a picture like that with an
Yep.
iPhone.
Hmm.
And yeah, they thought they caught this like weird dark shape that was in the middle of the room. But when you see the picture before it, you realize, yes, he was taking a panoramic and that there was a girl with a backpack walking through the scene as he was taking the picture.
Yep.
But yeah, this is, I've done that several times, trying to take pictures when I'm on vacation, getting everything in the shot.
Hmm.
And anybody that's in the shot that's moving is always distorted. They're either way too skinny. They look like, like at the end of a movie, the old movies where they used to shrink the screen to fit the credits on the side.
Yeah.
They look like that, or they're spread out because they were walking slow enough that as I was panning, I was still getting them in a lot of the shot.
Right.
Yeah.
So in a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being complete Holcomb bunk crap, and 10 being this is positively a ghost phenomenon, where would you rate Orbs?
One.
Okay.
I
That's what
mean,
I thought you would say.
yeah. There's all the evidence, and that's the problem. All the evidence, the legitimate evidence that we can verify, points to natural causes. But the problem is the ghost hunters that still promote this stuff, they have their own evidence, which is not verified, which is not actually evidence. It's just what they think is evidence. And that's what they present as proof. And they can't support it. They have no data or legitimate evidence to support their claim. So yes, as far as I'm concerned, and any professional photographer is concerned, orbs are not paranormal whatsoever. That's it.
Point, period, end of discussion.
Cut, print.
So, as we wrap up this episode 1 of Mr. Kinney's Skeptical Corner, as you can see, I'm talking to my listeners now, see and hear, Kinney is a treasure trove of information on investigating the paranormal. We've just scratched the surface with talking about orbs, and orbs are a basic function of investigating paranormal. We know what they are. We know what causes them. We can discard the evidence offhand fairly quickly. But as we do more of these episodes, we're trying to release one at least once a month, do a live broadcast of them, and then I'll post them on the website. We're going to get more into detail on doing a paranormal investigation, some of the techniques you should use, some of the equipment you should bring, some of the equipment you shouldn't bring, how to use equipment properly. And I thank you, Kenny, because I'm so glad I met you. And if people don't know, the way I met Kenny, I was investigating an episode of Ghost Stalkers with John Tenney. and they visited this house. I think it was Iowa, and the show itself talked about a vortex of paranormal would spring up from this specific corner of a house, and it would go through the third floor up to the attic. And as I was researching the history of this house, I ran into a brief blog post mentioning you as going to the actual house, investigating it, finding speaker wire running to different parts of the house, speaker wire next to ductworks, old audio equipment in the basement from the previous owner. And that's how I met up. So I sent you a message on Facebook. I introduced myself. And from there, we've been in contact with each other for off and on, since then, almost daily, it seems like. And I'm fortunate enough to meet someone like you, because when you're doing this stuff, you kind of feel isolated. Me right now, in my current state, when I do my podcast, I talk to a microphone in a room by myself. I'm not talking to people like you do, and I give you full credit for doing that. I eventually want to get there once things settle down in my life. My kids get a little bit older, and we get a couple other things settled. And you're going to be the first person I visit. I'm going to head up north, visit you, and hopefully Lou can join us. He can bring the taco sauce. I can bring the tortillas, and we can have a party. And you can bring the tequila.
Yeah.
But again, I appreciate you doing this. And before we go and sign off, do you have anything you want to plug? I know I mentioned you a lot in my episodes, but is there anything you want to get out there that you want people to know about?
Well, like conferences or something I'm doing.
Whatever you're doing, websites,
Let's see.
blog posts.
I have a list. Let's see. Well, tomorrow night I'll be on Paranormal Kool-Aid, which is another podcast. We do our Geeks and Ghosts every week. What are you looking at?
Sorry, so I'm monitoring the live feed over here.
Okay.
People are asking questions.
We do our Geeks and Ghosts show every week, and this week we're actually talking to Ben Radford, editor of Skeptical Magazine. Awesome guy. I like him. July 25th, I'll be at Penhurst Asylum. That's in Spring City, I believe. It's a Paracon that's going to be there, and we'll see what happens there. I got a booth, and we're going to set up our recording equipment, do some interviews. August 8th, Dover Comic-Con. I'm big into Comic-Cons. That's what we do with Geeks and Ghosts, too. September 19th, Paranormal Journeys Expo. I'll be there. September 26th, I'll be at what's called the Albatwitch Festival. I forget where it is, but it's basically it's a town that has a little Bigfoot legend. So it'll be interesting. I'm going to talk about photography there. I'm going to lecture at the event. My friend Sharon Hill will be out there too. She'll be lecturing, and I think that's it. Wow, yeah, I think that's all.
So let's consider this the Mr. Kenny Skeptical Corner extra here, because I have two questions from viewers. This particular question comes from my buddy at work, and he says, "What would you consider definitive proof of the paranormal?" I know that's a huge topic. So David, that's a whole other episode in and of itself.
I'll give you a short answer. I'm not sure. Okay, it depends, because there's so many facets of what's considered paranormal. Paranormal is not defined specifically. Mm-hmm. It's anything that's not normal. So people consider ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, sounds that they can't explain, weird light anomalies. All this is considered paranormal. So definitive proof, I would say, just for an example, if somebody said, and they had a claim, which I investigate claims, not just ghost stories, but claims. If somebody claimed that they could call down a ghost right now, and it would appear next to them and talk to me live, like I was there, and answer any questions I want and do all kinds of spooky stuff, I would say, show me. And if they did that, that would be definitive proof. That would be awesome.
Now that would be proof for you, right?
For me.
Because if I saw, if you told me that story, I think, well, Kenny's having a psychotic break. He's delusional.
It's
right?
an anecdote. As far as me telling you, It's anecdotal evidence. Don't die. Yeah, but that would be proof for me. But showing the world, no, you can't, because pictures, video, easily faked, easily hoaxed. We've seen that dozens of times. So it would have to be something in person, and be able to go into a lab, or it would have to be under controlled conditions, and not only that, but repeat it. In order to validate something, you have to repeat it over and over again under the same conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we're going. I'm not a scientist. I'm an enthusiast.
Right.
So I can't answer that like 100%. I can't. I don't know if the answer I'm giving you is satisfactory. I hope it is. But yeah, that's a whole nother show.
Yeah, it is. And one last question from David. He wants to know UFOs. Again, another another hour of talking we can do on UFOs. So he got these questions in under the hour mark. So to me, I think UFOs, you would have an easier time proving the existence of UFOs than the paranormal, specifically because in paranormal realms, you do a whole lot of special pleading, because you can explain away why things aren't happening at a certain time. And there's nothing defined as far as what the paranormal is and what laws of physics they can adhere to or break. With UFOs, and we're talking about extraterrestrials visiting planet Earth from a far off place in the galaxy, I think you would have an easier time proving something like that, because you would think these extraterrestrials would obey the same laws of physics we obey, and you can actually have definitive proof. You can have someone reach out and touch an alien spaceship. You can see an alien land, mass audience land on planet Earth and speak to them. You can have world leaders speak to an alien. Not so much with the paranormal.
Yeah, exactly. It would have to be that, a mass witnessing of what's going on. It would have to be a scout ship coming down from the mothership and landing in DC, on the White House lawn, something like that. But other than that, it goes back to the same issue we had with the first question. If it doesn't happen on a mass scale, then it's just anecdotal evidence. It's proof to somebody, but how do you relate that to everybody else?
And again, that's a whole nother episode, anecdotal evidence. Yeah. So, David, you have to come back for these every month so you can get the answers to these questions.
We're going to have to research on that
shit. Yeah. Well, we can just shoot from the hip on that one.
Yeah.
All right. The last one he has, and this is the last one, David. All right. Again, there's another whole show topic, EVPs. You and I know what EVPs are. They're pareidolia. It's the brain associating patterns and making it comprehensible. And it usually, what we wanted to say is what we hear. Have you been involved in an EVP session where even you, as Mr. Kenny Biddle, say, this sounds like someone's talking to me?
Well, yeah. Because even though I think a lot of it is pareidolia, it's people expecting to hear. They have that. They're primed. They're asking questions. They're at a haunted locations. They're primed to hear something. But it doesn't always mean that it's a random noise that somehow translates into phonetic speech. That we hear the phonetics and we grasp at words that we're expecting to hear. It could be somebody talking, because a lot of the EVP sessions that I've sat in on, people talk, they whisper, they move around. I mean, and you can shift your weight because you're sitting there for an hour, or even a half hour. Nobody can sit still. I mean, if they can, wow, I'm amazed. I've never seen it. Everybody has to move. And also they have this idea where it's like, well, the recorder's over there. They won't hear me if I lean over and go, hey, what's going on? Well, yes, the recorder will pick you up. You know, especially if it's set on like conference room. There are a lot of your recorders have different microphone sensitivities. If it's set on a high sensitivity or like a conference room setting, yes, it's going to pick you up. It's going to pick up an echo. It's going to pick up somebody down the hall. It's going to pick up noises or voices coming from people downstairs through the ventilation system. These are all things we have to consider. So not only could it be a noise that gets interpreted in a pareidolia way to us, where we think we hear voices, but it could also be a voice from somebody with us. And I think that's overlooked because you often hear the excuse, nobody was talking at the time. Well, how do you verify that? You know, all we have is a 10-second recording, audio recording. We don't have video of the area. We don't have a longer clip of it. We can't tell who's there. We don't have any context. So EVPs to me, I don't think they're ghosts. I don't think they're spirits because I haven't seen any evidence to support that.
So they'd probably rank right up there with orbs as far as evidence for the paranormal.
Yeah.
David, I hope you're satisfied with that answer. Again, that's a whole other show topic. We can go an hour on EVPs.
Hey.
So you have to tune in next month when we do this again. We may do it on EVPs. We may do it on UFOs. We may do it on fairies or trolls that live under the bridge. The paranormal is such a broad spectrum of belief that you can talk for hours on end about any nuanced topic of it. And hopefully this is popular enough, even if it's not, just me talking to you is enough for me to have these on a monthly basis. So before we leave, let me just say a couple things to my listeners. This cool shirt I'm wearing, Ghost Hunting Expert, on sale now at paranormalskepticacademy.com/shop. 6 t-shirt designs to choose from. So help a brother out, purchase a cool t-shirt. I like the designs. I think they're cool. I would wear them. I actually ordered one of each for myself to wear. So if you like them, buy one. If you want to become a member, you can sign up at paranormalskepticacademy.com. You get extra bonus content. You get an exclusive member feed where I do at least one bonus episode a month, either a PSA short or a complete episode of one of these ghost hunting reality shows that only members get. You can be a patron at patreon.com/PSA. 3 membership options to choose from. Some new perks are coming out where if you're a $5 a month contributor, you'll get a PSA sticker. If you're a $10 a month one, you'll get a PSA shirt. If you sign up in the month of July, you'll get a free t-shirt. So go do that now. Make my hobby my profession. Or not. Either way, I'm still doing it. So
one.
Kenny, it was a pleasure having you on. We look forward to doing this next week. And anything else you want to say before we sign off?
Never stop learning. That's it. I mean, don't stop learning. Critical thinking is a learned skill. Nobody's born with it. So start asking questions. Keep asking questions. Make them define exactly what they're talking about. When somebody's trying to sell you something or make you believe something, ask questions. That's your most important tool.
That's it. All right. Thank you, everyone who watched live, all 7 of you. So we had 7 viewers for the first episode. That's more than I expected. And thank you for listening to the first episode of Mr. Kenny's Skeptical Corner. And come back here again next month for more.
Sweet. You don't know how to turn it off.
No, I did. It still says live. It's stopping. So this is probably